Something huge has just been uncovered in Ahsoka, which might reveal everything. Hello observant acolytes, and welcome back to the archives. All throughout the Ahsoka show, we have been getting Easter eggs and hint drops in key locations. For a long time, it's been some things in the background and in relation to the names of certain characters. Each one gives us a very small hint at what's to come, or a clue to the overall mystery that the show is perpetuating. Within each episode, the mystery clears up slightly, but with every answer comes even more questions. Peridia is a world that belongs to the Night Sisters, but how did they get to the main galaxy? Why are they now trying to flee from Peridia? What is the power that resides on Peridia that Baylan is so attracted to? There are but only a few of the many questions that still remain, but it seems with every new discovery, we are able to link Ahsoka back through the translation of the ancient inscriptions which is written on the Night Sister Temple on Peridia. So let's grab our magnifying glasses and decipher the ancient manuscripts and dive right into it, as it reveals something dangerous, ancient, and dark, something that indeed harkens back to the beginning of it all, as the Night Sister Temple begins to reveal secrets. Some very observant acolytes on Twitter recently posted that they had noticed the writing on the Night Sister Temple, and indicated that they were strangely familiar, linking it back to the writing seen in the various Zeffo temples explored in the Fallen Order series. That's when the poster for Grand Admiral Thrawn was officially released, giving us a vivid image of a long inscription on the Night Sister Temple that lie behind him. This same inscription can be seen in the full episode, and again, some who were able to recognize the language, it was in fact the language known as the Ur-Katat, which is the language of the ancient Sith purebloods. Only the inscription we see in Ahsoka is upside down. Flipping the inscription around and using the rudimentary knowledge that we have about this ancient language, it is revealed to us that this is the ancient version of the Sith purebloods, and that it is roughly translated to "Raise Kujet, ruler of all, may his reign last for all," but the sentence is only a fragment, being cut off at the beginning and the end. But of course, it's likely that the first word is actually praise, and the end of the sentence likely ends with all time, or something along those lines. But who exactly is Kujet? Kujet, if you remember, was the name of the Zeffo that turned to the dark side, and was one of the catalysts for the Zeffo's demise. But who exactly are the Zeffo? The Zeffo were an ancient species of Force sensitives who originated from a planet that they named after themselves. They adhered to the ways of the light and called the Force the Life Wind. They were mystics that constructed many kinds of objects and artifacts that were extremely potent with the Force. Eventually, the Zeffo would branch out and establish an interplanetary rule, with the main sage leaders constructing elaborate tombs for themselves filled with their treasures, knowledge, teachings, and automatons. At some point in their history, the Zeffo leaders would unfortunately become corrupted by the dark side, giving into the allure of power, plunging their people as a result and their entire culture into the darkness head first. What's important to remember about the Zeffo though is that they were Force sensitives before time itself was recorded, and they were created and established far before the Jedi or Sith ever were, and likely before even the Night Sisters of Peridia. But going back to the state of the Zeffo people after their turn and embrace of the dark side, one such Zeffo ruler and the last of his line went by the name of Kujet. Kujet took the corruption of the Zeffo already had and dialed it up, delving in what would later become Sith practices. Eventually, Kujet's studies of the dark side of the Force would lead him to the planet of Dathomir. It would be here where he set up his main rule and oppressed the people harshly, making himself their Emperor of the Darkness. Obviously, this meant that he had a connection to the Night Sisters. Kujet's big claim to infamy was how he responded to a brave resistance that rose against him, one that was built against his rule. Kujet would trap the rebels in his palace and stage a massacre there, completely reducing them to absolutely nothing. Kujet's ultimate fate unfortunately is unknown, but it is said that he died and was placed in a sarcophagus within an elaborate tomb of his own. As for the rest of the Zeffo species though, they had apparently fled to the unknown regions to seek peace for their people and reconnect with the Life Wind. Unfortunately though, they were never seen again, thus ending the reign of the Zeffo permanently from this point on, at least in the known galaxy. And although Kujet had died, we believe that this was not the end of his rule. Let us explain. Kujet had a deep connection to the Night Sisters, and that being traced all the way back to Peridia. We now have found that it seems at some point he might have had rule on the planet of Peridia itself, or at least a cult bearing his following, and then they had made a journey to establish a new kingdom there. What's frustrating about this at the moment though, is we don't exactly have any timetables for these events. The only things that we can really go off of is Legends continuity. We know that the Zeffo were inspired by the Rakatan Empire, which we also learned thanks to Andor is also now canon. In Legends though, the Rakata Empire reigned in the year 25,000 BBY, meaning that it could be possible that the Zeffo also reigned around this time in canon. Unfortunately though, the rulership of Kujet and the date of his death are not recorded, nor do we have the dates for the Night Sisters' pilgrimage from Peridia to Dathomir. But although we don't have the timeline, we do have a few possibilities. First, Kujet could have made the journey from Dathomir to Peridia and reigned there for a time before coming back to the known galaxy, though how he did this is anyone's guess. Secondly, Kujet could even be the reason that the Night Sisters are on Dathomir in the first place. Maybe he went from Zeffo to Peridia and brought back powerful followers. Thirdly, the remaining Zeffo that were once under his reign and went into the unknown regions could have in fact gone to Peridia instead and started a cult kingdom from him post-mortem. This wouldn't be the first time that someone allegedly went to the unknown regions but was actually in Peridia. Or fourthly, the one that I'm actually leaning towards is that Kujet's spirit is actually on Peridia following his physical death and is speaking to the Night Sister Coven there. The reason we bring this up is some have theorized that it is the very spirit of Kujet who is strong with the power of the dark side who is calling for Baylan, offering him the knowledge of the beginning, as Kujet and the Zeffo are the earliest recorded Force wielders in all of the canon lore that we know of currently. The Night Sisters are known to be ruled by spirits and attempting resurrections, though perfect resurrection is a lot more complicated and hasn't really been completed in Star Wars canon. Perhaps the spirit of Kujet is bound to some sort of artifact and is ruling the Night Mothers and remaining Night Sisters on Peridia. It's clear that his influence still reigns there, but perhaps something more has changed and he has become too oppressive for their liking. We see their temples and kingdom in ruins, and the Night Mothers doing anything they can to desperately escape Peridia. Thrawn also seems to be wary of this issue as well, eager to leave not only Peridia, but the entire galaxy that he was banished to. What's important about this though, is Kujet and his relationship as one of the first ever Force wielders to the Night Sisters as well as the Sith. Again, the writing on the temple isn't in fact anything having to do with the Night Sisters or the Zeffo, but is written in the ancient Sith pure-blooded language, meaning that the Sith purebloods may have also been to Peridia, may have been ruled by Kujet, or even the very idea of him. Perhaps the spirit of Kujet is no longer around, and he certainly did die upon his physical death, but it is rather the idea of him. The idea of potentially the first ever being to have turned to the dark side of the Force, or the first ever being to truly pioneer the use of the dark side, which would eventually cultivate into the Coven of Night Sisters as well as eventually become the Sith Order. One thing is for certain though, the strange writing on the Temple of Peridia claims that Kujet's reign is absolute and everlasting. Does this hint at a grandiose return, or rather, an extreme importance of the past? Could this be a plan for the future, or a remnant of the dark side itself? The very beginning of it all. Even the bare teachings of Kujet, not even his spirit, could influence Shin and Baylan, giving them massive power, reigniting a brand new rule. At this moment, the possibilities are endless. What we do know though, is that these clues are no mere coincidence, and they definitely should be taken as something to keep an eye out for. We know that Lucasfilm has the Fallen Order franchise well in mind since we got so much references to it in the Kenobi series, and now the Zeffo are far more prominent than ever. The very beginning that Baylan is likely speaking of, the potential ghost of the first Darksider. But anyway, my friends, this is just our theory and the evidence that we have to support it at this point, as well as a lot that we know about the Zeffo species. But is there anything that we missed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and stay tuned later tonight for our breakdown and first thoughts on Ahsoka Episode 7. As always, thank you so much for visiting the channel, your support means the world, and may the Force be with you.